Man, oh man, oh man, John, that killer is that intro is absolute fire. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Hey, welcome everybody to first off, happy Juneteenth and happy Father's Day. We'd like to welcome you all to the first episode of the Black Men with Purpose podcast, titled Who Are We and Why Are We Here? I'm Kevin Danley, and in a few minutes you will meet the other good brothers of the Black Men with Purpose podcast. But first, let me tell you how we came to be. We are five brothers. That's Brotha apostrophe S brothers, even though I do consider all of them to be my brothers from another mother. But we all met in the Air Force. We have varying backgrounds, but we each have a passion for effectuating change. To be more precise, we have a passion for helping Black males, young and old, overcome obstacles and challenges that can be hindrances to happiness, productivity, as well as success. We believe that through our experiences, successes, and failures, we can have some conversations that might help other Black males in their respective journeys through this thing we call life. That's the Reader's Digest version of why we're here. Now we want to tell you a little bit about who we are. And since I currently have the mic, I'll start it off. I currently live in Florida with my wife and our three beautiful adult daughters, but I'm originally from Newark, New Jersey, aka Brick City, where I was raised by a single mother. For those who are unfamiliar, Newark is a densely populated city in North Jersey. It's the largest city in New Jersey by population. We were fortunate to have loving relatives as well as a close church family. However, financially speaking, we were poor and lived in the hood. As far back as I can remember, though, I always felt different from most people. And a lot of my family and friends who are listening to this might be surprised to hear me say that because I don't believe I ever actually shared that with any of them. But in any case, I was driven to figure out a way out of those circumstances. And it struck me as odd that a lot of people in my life didn't seem to feel that same way. In time, I learned that many of them felt stuck and believed that they were destined to endure those circumstances. And then there were those who never realized that they even had the power to change their situations. But I knew there had to be a way, had to be more to life for all of us in Black communities than these dead end jobs, struggling to pay bills, etc. I somehow recognized that at a very, very young age. And so I had this desire to help others overcome those circumstances and live a more fulfilling life. At some point in high school, I recall setting three goals to help myself live that more fulfilling life. Those goals were getting a college education, traveling, and making a positive difference in the world. The problem was figuring out how I was going to accomplish those things. My mother couldn't afford to send me to college, and my grades weren't certainly weren't good enough to earn a scholarship. So how else would I receive an education and see the world? I figured out quickly that the military would be my way out. I was always fascinated by the Navy. However, I couldn't swim, so that was out. But I'd heard that the Air Force was the most sophisticated and intelligent branch of the military, which, by the way, is accurate. So I went and I spoke with the recruiter. 6.5 months after graduating high school, I was on this plane heading to basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, trying to figure out what I'd gotten myself into. And then 25 and a half years after that, I retired from the Air Force. Now, remember, I said I went in the military because I set these goals of getting an education, seeing the world, and making a difference in the world. Well, to this point in my life, I have 6 college degrees to include a PhD. I've been to all 50 states, I've been to 27 countries, and I found my purpose and passion for helping others through leadership, mentorship, as well as life coaching. I've also started 2 businesses. Now, why am I saying that? It's certainly not to be braggadocious in any way at all. I share that to let you know that if this little poor Black kid from the hood in Newark, New Jersey could overcome life's challenges to have some modicum of success and accomplishment, then anyone can do it as well. And so that's a little bit about me. And with that, and you'll learn more about me as well as all the rest of us as we go along in each episode. But with that, I'm going to pass it over to smooth R&B Ray Butler.
Man, I really don't know what I just got myself into by saying I would go behind you after hearing all that, you know. But like you said, bro, we have some different backgrounds and everything. A little bit about me is I'm from a small town. Well, really not small, but for everybody else's purposes, a small town of Warren, Ohio. It sits about halfway between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, and I grew up in a two-parent household. I grew in a diverse neighborhood, a very nice and diverse neighborhood. But the problem that I had coming up wasn't that that I was able to get things or what have you, or had to struggle. How are we going to be able to do things, or how were mom and dad going to be able to put food on the table? That was never a question for me. But for me, my problem was trying to figure out where I fit in this world, because back then they didn't call it bullying, but I guess we would call it bullying by today's standards. I was known as the rich nerd. My dad worked at, he was an Air Force veteran, but he also worked at GM doing extremely well. My mom started out working out at General Electric, and then she quit GE and went and worked for herself. She opened up her own beauty salon, and she was extremely successful doing that until she retired about 7 years ago. So because of background and my trying to figure out where I fit in, my self-esteem, in my opinion, lacked a lot. Um, and it seemed like it remained that way until folks figured out, hey, he can play basketball. So then I was starting to get a little more notoriety. My picture was constantly in the local newspaper. I started getting a lot more attention, but I still was trying to figure out exactly where did I fit in. So I graduated high school. I went to college for a couple of years because I figured that's what successful people did. That they went to college, got a degree, and I also thought that what was expected of me, or what was expected of me. Um, some things came easy because of my parents. I never really had to work for anything, but again, I went to college because I figured that was the best way to succeed. I didn't know any better. But after wasting about 2 years at Kent State, I realized this is not where I need to be. And the last thing I wanted to do was, go back home and be working in McDonald's, Burger King, or Wendy's saying, "Hi, welcome to McDonald's. May I take your order?" I just felt I was meant to do something more than that. So I went and looked into joining the Air Force and the Navy first. First man-to-man conversation I ever initiated with my dad was saying, "Hey, I'm going to go talk to the recruiter." When he had been talking about, you need to go to the Air Force the entire time. And I'm like, "No, Dad, I'm not going to do it," because I knew that's what he wanted, but that just wasn't my career path at that time, at least not in my head. So when I told him I was going, he said, "Wait, when are we going?" I'm like, "No, we're not going. I'm going to go because I need to do this for myself. I need to grow as a man. And if you're standing there holding my hand, I'm not going to do it." So I went on down. I went to see the Navy. The Navy recruiter wasn't there. I walked down the hall, and Staff Sergeant Robert Heiss from the United States Air Force Recruiting Service was sitting there. I walked into his office and never walked out. 29 days later, I was on a plane heading to Lackland Air Force Base. So the one thing I did learn in my 25 years in the Air Force, I did retire after 25 years. Um, I learned a lot about myself. I learned that I was definitely here to make a difference. I kept seeing how we've all gone back home and seen people standing on the corner doing the same things that they did when we left. And I was like, man, I'm glad I missed out on that. But how can I give back? And then meeting you brothers throughout the years, that just reinforced, my decision. And I was extremely thankful that I did things the way that I did them. But that's me in a nutshell. And like as Kevin said, you all will learn more about me further on down the road. But with that being said, I'm going to pass over to the little brother of the group, John Singletary.
I tell you what, how do I come after all of that? I learned a couple of things in both of those intros, but I'm John Singletary. I have an interesting position on the totem pole of this group. Everybody else in this group has either supervised me, mentored me, kept me from killing myself, getting fired, getting kicked out of the Air Force. So that's why I'm little brother, because they have kept me out of trouble. And I know that I was a thorn in their side so many times. But my journey, single parent home, came from the east side of San Antonio, lived in several housing projects, here and there. Um, Always knew I wanted to see more out of life. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't have a specific vision, but I knew it had to be better than what I was experiencing. Um, and, I have friends that were in the prison system, parents in the prison system. I was almost headed to the prison system. Figured that I had found my way out. I took, after I graduated from high school, barely, I was real smart, but my issue was I'd rather hang out instead of going to class. So like I had a whole bunch of absences, but I was able to get through. And I took what I call a ghetto gap year. So my plan was I wanted to be the biggest kingpin in the streets of San Antonio, and I was horrible at it, a horrible failure. But a buddy of mine kept saying, "You one of the smartest guys I know. I know you can get in college. You got really high SAT and ACT scores. You need to be up here with us." So I ended up going to Southwest Texas. It's now Texas State, and it really ignited my activism. So when we got up there, we were part of the Black Student Alliance and part of the NAACP. At one point, me and my buddy, we were running the local chapter of the NAACP and doing some things for the state and the national level. And that part of Texas is a hotbed for the Klan. So our names got familiar with some folks that were doing those things. And we actually got sent death threats by the Ku Klux Klan. And it ended up that David Duke came to our campus to debate some of our senior faculty, and we put on the event. And then we ended up creating an organization of all of the Black student organizations on campus called CAUSE, which was the Coalition of African Americans United for Self-Empowerment. And one of the highlights, it's amazing we don't still talk about it. We were very active in that, but we did have that activism in us, but we also had some active fool in us too. So, you know, we balanced our activism with a lot of partying and hanging out and getting into trouble. And eventually the money started to run low. So I dropped out of college. I'm going around doing odd jobs, amazed that my expertise from 3 failed years in college didn't automatically make me eligible for high-paying jobs. I don't know how that happened, but so one night I come in, I think I was drunk or high or a combination of both, and I see my mom on her knees praying, and I said, "Man, she's praying for me." So the next morning I got up and I went to go see an Air Force recruiter, and I was gone in 30 days, and that began my adventure with the Air Force. And I came into recruiting and had the privilege of meeting all of these gentlemen, and it's changed my life. And I tell you what, everybody that's on this screen, it's funny to look because they have had a moment where they were like completely exasperated with me. Like, dude, why don't he get it? I got cussed out by all of these gentlemen, and Byron don't even cuss, but I got cussed out. But with their guidance and their support, I just retired here last month as the senior enlisted leader for recruiting and retention in the Air National Guard, and I couldn't have gotten here without these gentlemen. And what I'm passionate about is that I know that sometimes I look back on my journey, and if there would have been a man in my position to put his arms around me and tell me, you know, that it's going to be all right, to give me guidance, to give me mentoring. So I am super passionate about that. I get involved everywhere I can. I've got plenty of initiatives going on personally. I'm part of numerous collectives. Wherever I can lend my voice, my hand, my expertise, or whatever I can give to the cause, I'm passionate because I know that all it takes is a little bit to make a big difference. And if we could plant a seed, it's amazing the size of the tree that can grow from just a small seed. And so I'm just passionate about doing my part. So I'm going to pass it on to the bishop.
Gentlemen, I don't know what to say. This is a great group of brothers, and I got to come after all this. So yeah, my name is Byron Williams. I grew up in a little small town. I will tell you, I grew up in a small town in the northeast corner of Indiana, Fort Wayne, Indiana. It was I grew up on the south side of the town. I grew up in a 2-parent household. My dad ended up being a pastor, and you know, I was thinking that was the worst thing in the world, right? So that was so I grew up with a 2-parent household, and one of the things I started doing early that kept me out of trouble, I started playing football at like the age of 10, and I played football all the way from the age of 10 through my sophomore year in college. And but what I realized even from that experience is that you have to learn to redefine yourself. You still got to learn who you are. You can't be one dimension. And so with that, I ended up going to the Air Force, and my story is a little bit different because I had a partial scholarship. And because I'm a first generation college graduate, my parents never went to college. Their grandparents never went to college. So because I got a partial scholarship, my parents got tagged by the IRS and was like, hey, your son's scholarship counts towards income. So my parents had to pay back money. And from that, I said, you know what? I can't, at 20 years old, I said, I can't be a burden to my parents anymore. So I was like, let me go to the Air Force. Besides, I wasn't doing that good anyway. I was like a 1.9 GPA. So I was like, you know what? I ain't doing that good in college right now. Let me just go on and be out. And so like you brothers, went to see the recruiter, Reggie Saxon. How come we always can remember the recruiter that got us into this mess, right? We can remember the recruiter that got us into this mess, Reggie Saxon. And you know how it is. I went active duty. You know, I was like, yeah, I want to be air traffic controller. They told that lie. Got there. They was like, yeah, you're gonna be a cop. I was like, oh man, that was. So we can remember the person got us into this trouble, right? And came into the Air Force, active duty a couple of years, then joined the Guard. That's when we all, our paths started connecting, and it was a great experience. But the one thing I learned through that career, and even today, is don't accept the word no. And I think that all of you are a product of that. Like we didn't accept the word no. They may have tried to shut the door in our face. They might have told us we wasn't ready, and we said, okay, if I'm not ready for this, there's other opportunities, and I think all of us have experienced that. And watching you guys through your career, it's like, okay, you're not going to do that for us? No problem. We'll do something different and we'll be successful at it. And so that's what I want to give back on this, to this group, to the people that we reach out to, the people that listen to us. You don't accept the word no. I don't care how black you are. I don't care how fat you are. I don't care how skinny you are. Don't accept the word no. I tell people, I'm like Dr. K here, finishing my degree. When I was doing my PhD, I was just too dumb to quit. I was like, I didn't come this far, I was just too dumb to quit. And so, so with that being said, this is going to be a platform that we'll be able to help people and let them understand we can't just we no different than you are. All of us are a grace case. If it wasn't for God's grace, where would we be? So because of that, John talked about his praying mother. All of us on this phone got somebody that was praying for us, that kept us from, going too far to the right or too far to the left. And even when we thought those people wasn't praying for us, it was still like, yeah, I still see you. So the prayer still came around the corner, tapped us on the shoulder. It was like, yeah, you still got destiny. You can wait here, but you got to go. So I appreciate you all being a part of this call. And I'm looking forward to us being an impact, sharing our story, sharing our thoughts and vision for this group. And I think it's going to be successful. So with that being said, I will turn it over to the statesman of the group. Yes. Mr. Hector.
Hey, thanks, brother. I'm at a loss for words too. I too have learned a lot just by listening to you all share your story, and I appreciate that. I'm a firm believer that there's always something to be learned by understanding someone else's story. And quite honestly, I think that's one of the major things that's missing in this world, and certainly in this country today. More about that later, though. So I'm Rod Hector. Very excited to join these dynamic brothers for this podcast. I hail from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, more specifically, North Philly. There is a difference, but say all that, I am no different than many, right? I was raised by a single mother, even though the circumstances may have been a little different. Nonetheless, I watched her struggle to provide me the bare necessities in life: food, shelter, safety. And I will always honor and respect her for her journey and what I witnessed her go through to keep me safe. And so anybody know anything about Philadelphia? Back when I was growing up there, gang wars were prevalent, and everyone was susceptible, right? So I had a passion for basketball. Spent every extra moment I had at the basketball court, in the schoolyard, trying to hone my skills, right? But before I go on, I want to give a shout out to Raymond Rose Projects, as well as Johnson Homes there in North Philly. I learned a lot growing up in that environment. Learned how to be a survivor as well. So I had just mad respect for those that grew up there, as well as any other projects across the country. And so part of, I think, what has come to drive me is trying to find a way to help change the circumstances and situations that a lot of our young people, especially our young Black people, are growing up in throughout this country. So back to my story. So I was able to get exposed at a young age as my mother tried to keep me safe and get me into a better environment. We moved quite a bit. So I spent some time in Dover, Delaware, where I had my first experience with white people in America, up close and personal. My first white teacher. And that experience helped shape who I became later on in life. Because while Miss Elizabeth was different, and we didn't necessarily see eye to eye in the beginning, by the end of that school year, and that was in the 3rd grade, by the end of that school year, I was the spelling bee champion, the top math student, and I attribute it to the fact that she was young and she didn't want to fail, and she wasn't going to let me fail. So I wish I could find her to this day, because I believe that everything that I aspired to do after that was a byproduct of having had that experience, and then understanding that, as my mother always told me, education is really your best way and opportunity to change your circumstances. And while it doesn't always mean college, it means get knowledge that no one can ever take away from you and use it to build towards what you determine success is for you. So did that. And of course, my mom, bless her soul, worked hard, and she was still trying to find a way to make life better for me and for her. Ended up moving back to Philadelphia, and right back into kind of the same environment. But what I will tell you is that once you changed your environment to go back to where you came from, your perspective is totally different. And so, whereas before, when I was growing up in Philadelphia, I had no fear of the environment because I thought everyone lived like that. But once I moved to Delaware and then moved back, now I'm like, okay, this is dangerous, So, but I went to school in West Philly because it was a better school. And I really appreciate the fact that my mother had a vision for that. Most of the kids in my neighborhood, went to Strawberry Mansion. I have so much respect for people that went through there and still got an education, because there was a lot going on there. Just, listening to the stories of people that lived in my neighborhood that went to school there. But I went out to West Philly, to Salzburger, and had a great educational experience. Even though the walk to school and back was long and arduous when SEPTA went on strike, but still, indeed, had a good opportunity to get educated. Then, getting ready to go into high school, I was planning to go to Central. I'm sure people from Philly know what Central is, but my mother decided, okay, we're going to Texas. Long story about that, but nonetheless, we left, journeyed on, landed in Houston, Texas, South Park, more specifically, and really was exposed to a totally different way of life. And so I had an opportunity, because I had, focused on education and, had an opportunity to get a good education, won a scholarship to go to Rice University the summer after I moved there for an enrichment program, and got there and realized that there are a lot of smart people in this world. And I wasn't feeling like one of them. I heard words that I had never heard before, discussions about propaganda and the influence that it had on the Cold War. And so I realized then that I was going to have to put my head down and really focus on getting educated for real. So did that, transferred from predominantly Black school to a predominantly white school out at Lamar High School, and had a great educational experience there as well. And of course, not knowing what to do once you graduate from high school, we all figured, what, you either go in the military or you go to college. So even though I had done 3 years of ROTC, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go to college. So I went to college, but ended up at Texas Southern University. And anybody from Houston knows, going to TSU as a freshman, not really understanding, one, you don't get 8 o'clock classes and things of that nature. But after 2 years, President Reagan at the time cut my Pell Grant. And since I was at that time taking care of myself, I had to figure out how I was going to pay it for college. And I ended up joining the Texas Air National Guard, which led me to these brothers. So did that, and kind of the rest was history as far as the military. I think I'm the only one who spent their entire career working for the Guard. So I did that, and was able to retire, a blessing. And so I am looking forward to the opportunity to engage with other like-minded people, especially brothers, to figure out how we can move forward, opportunities for young people in this country now that kind of had some of the same struggles, some of the same stories, to provide them hope that, with discipline and commitment, that you too can reach any goal that you set for yourself. So I appreciate that. You'll learn more about my story, I'm sure, as we go along, because the part that really cemented was kind of my glue was the number of strong Black women on both sides that really were the reason that I had any level of success in this world. So, and I look forward to talking more about that. But so as we segue, one of the things I'm really interested in, and hopefully those watching would be as well, is and this is for the brothers, kind of what motivated you to want to get engaged in any movement to try and help those either less fortunate or provide an opportunity for those that may not have to experience some of the hardships and pains that that a lot of us had to go through. And so, having said that, I will turn it over to Kevin, if you want to provide your perspective on that first.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, and I talked a little bit about it in my intro when I talked a little bit about how I grew up and my upbringing and all that. But that really was a huge part of it, right? I saw um, everyone in my community, like everyone that I knew, everyone in my world, essentially struggled. Um, and as I watched that, and again, as I've already stated, something in me, I can only, I can't tell you where it came from, but just at an early age, something in me just felt like there's more than this, right? And no one else seemed to feel that same way. At least no one verbalized that. So to me, from what I could tell, everyone just seemed like they were cemented in that way of living. And not only did I want to get out of the hood myself and find out what there was out there, what that better was, that I felt within me, but I also wanted to help others recognize that as well. So it started there for me at that age. Like, man, I feel this way. Why doesn't everyone feel that same way? Like they can do more, they can be more, right? They can accomplish more in life. Um, and succeed in whatever way success means to them, whatever the definition, because everybody's definition of success obviously is different. But I wanted to see people do that, and that just kind of continued to grow as I aged. Right, I got once I went in the military. It was always the same thing. I always had this desire to want to I think about when I was in school, when I was in high school, and I was always the person who wanted to, you know, keep the bully away from that person who didn't have a voice, right? That person who couldn't really defend themselves. I was always that person, and that just morphed into me wanting to help other people, again, live their best lives. And for me, it's not even just, I talked about being, at least I think I mentioned being a life coach, in my leadership and all those sorts of things, but it's not just that. Like John, and I think so many of you mentioned already, my activism in general, right? It speaks to that, whatever that is within me. And I also have to attribute it to God and growing up in church. Byron mentioned it, how we all kind of had that in us, right? We all had a praying mother or someone in our lives who was praying for us, right? I grew up in church. I had a church family. And so I think a lot of it also came from there. But what I was starting to say was my activism is just an extension of my life coaching and my leadership desires, to help others succeed in life. And I have my hands in all sorts of different pots regarding activism, right? And so I think, again, it came from whatever that was in me at a very early age to want to see other people succeed, not just myself. And also that whatever I got from being in church, that was instilled in me as well. And I think that that's kind of where that all came from for me. So,
Okay. Yeah, great. So I'll show over to Ray. You want to provide your perspective?
Absolutely. And again, I appreciate the question. I appreciate what Kevin just said. Um, again, to answer your question, one of the things I used to hear all the time, and it's one of those sayings that have been going around for years: to whom much is given, much is required. For me, again, I always felt like the outsider. Um, I didn't really. I had my family. I had some friends, that I grew up with, but I still always felt like that outsider. And like, so because I felt like, I was always being called the rich nerd and that these things and that and the other. I didn't like it. I didn't like the way I was treated. And one of the things that I said that I would do if I was ever in a position to, I would do the exact opposite. I would make everyone feel special. I would make everyone feel appreciated, loved. um, I didn't want anyone else to ever feel the way that I felt, because again, I felt lost half the time, like why are people picking on me, or why are people talking about me? What have I done to them? So for me, it was just wanting to be a better man. Everything that I have ever done in my life, the only thing I've ever wanted to do was be a better man. Um, Again, I had a praying mother. I have a praying mother. My dad passed about 8 years ago, and my dad only stepped foot in the church, it seemed like, for weddings and funerals. Every now and again he would go to church, but my mom was the one that would have me and my sister going with her in tow to church. So I had my church family there as well. But I always wanted to make sure that I uplifted someone else, because I knew how it felt to be, you know, I felt like a cast off, if you will. And again, I had a easy upbringing compared to a lot of people, but that was my own personal demon, feeling like I was, you know, less than, and that's why I said my self-esteem was in the toilet, and it really took meeting good people, positive people. And that's one thing I appreciate about when I met you brothers. I mean, I didn't meet you all at the same time. I know I think I met Byron back like in 1998. I know I met Kevin and Rod around the same time frame. I can't remember exactly when I met John, and even though we were the big brother to John, you know, everything it's come full circle. It has literally come full circle, because I will
Yeah.
listen to some of the things that John will say, and I'm like, wow, it's mind blowing to me, because
Yeah.
to see where he came from, to where he is now, it's I feel proud that I had a small part in that. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, but that's where I'm at with it, brother. That's what drives me to want to be to make a difference, and that's what when this idea was proposed, that's why I went all in. I'm like, yes, I'm here. I'm all for it. So,
That's good stuff, right?
that being said, I'm gonna shut it up, and I'm gonna let y'all go go
That's
on.
good stuff, man.
No, yeah, no, that is good stuff, man. We appreciate that, Ray. And so we're gonna turn it over to John.
Yeah, little brother. Y'all get to hear LJ in the background. He back there having a good time. But hey, that's part of the show. That's what I bring to the table. Me and my son having fun. So I think this is a really incredible question, because I think about the fact that we all told our stories, and there were people that came from where we came from and experienced what we experienced, but yet weren't inspired or affected the same way, with a desire to give back to others like we are. And and that's no disrespect to anybody. Everybody has their journey, but I just love that question, because I think it makes me have to search myself, like, why is this such a passion for me? And listening to you all's story, my first answer was going to be, I don't know. But as I thought about it, and Ray really helped me kind of think about it. It's not having. So, like, I remember specifically, I had a sports scholarship to go to a Catholic school, but it was right around the time that my mom was in prison. And I remember walking to school, and I had these ponies, because my grandmother, she doing the best that she can. But I mean, she had a whole bunch. It was like, how grandma house is in the hood. Everybody ain't got nowhere to go stay there. So, it was a whole bunch of folks that had to be provided for. And I
Yeah.
remember I had these pony tennis shoes, and
Yep.
they had holes in the bottom. And when it rained, I could feel the wetness on the bottom of my feet. And I just felt like I felt lower than the bottom of the ground. And I just thought, man, not only do I hate feeling this way, but I hate the idea that other people would ever have to feel this way. And if there's anything that I can do to help others that can't speak up for themselves, and I've watched it manifest itself, especially like in my organizational style and my leadership style, I always find myself drawn to the person that might be by themselves or quiet or may not be being pulled into the group, because I know what it feels like to be an outsider. And so, and on all of the personality tests, I always grade out as somebody who wants harmony and wants everyone to feel included. So being right or wrong, that I don't even care about that. I just want to make sure that there's harmony and inclusion. And so for me, it's just a big part of, I know that there's real suffering in this world. There's so many beautiful things about the world, but there's so much suffering. And I just feel like I have a distinct responsibility to bring a specific good, a higher good into this world. And I'll keep working at it, searching for it, and keep applying myself. So like, I was just sitting up here looking at this collection and hearing y'all's voices. I got emotional for a minute because I'm like, this is beautiful. You know what I mean? Like, we've been talking about this for a year, but to see the manifestation of it is a beautiful thing. And I think really that's what drives me, is that I personally know suffering, and I understand the joy and the satisfaction of being able to help someone else who is enduring suffering find a pathway out, or find a way to eliminate or at least reduce the pain that they're experiencing. And it's personally fulfilling for me. So
Again, good stuff, man. Wow.
Yeah, they're amazing, you know. And I will tell you, and then we'll go to Dr. B. But one thing that I find is, again, the power in everyone's story. You know, and I think that that's one thing, no matter who it is, no matter where you are, no matter what your circumstances are, just understanding that everyone has a story, and there might be something about your story that you don't even realize, but it might change someone else's life. It might save someone else's life.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You know, it might give them hope for a brighter tomorrow. You know, so that's why it's so important. And I encourage everyone to share their story. Whatever you're comfortable with sharing, share it, because you never know who might need to hear that word on any given day.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll turn it over to Dr. Williams there. You can share with us.
Hey, I like it what you said about story. That's one of my things. It's like, hey, we cannot forget our story, nor can you mistreat people based on their story. I one time, a couple of years ago, I read this quote that says, "Don't judge me by the chapter of my life that you've walked in on."
Absolutely.
Because everybody has a story. Everybody's been through something. And just listening to what you guys were saying, I was thinking about, like I said, I grew up with two parents household, but my parents grew up in Alabama. They grew up in the 40s and the 50s in Alabama. And so they came to Indiana in the early 60s, getting away from what was then in Alabama, the Jim Crow, And one thing my parents did, like I said, my parents never went to college, but they always wanted to give back. And it seemed like, when I go back and visit where they came from in Alabama, my parents, neither one of them had running water, right? Neither one of them had a bathroom in their house. So, they had an outhouse. I know I'm dating myself, but I remember my grandparents didn't even have a bathroom in their house until I was 13 years old. So, and so when my parents came to Indiana, and yeah, they had like it was a 2-bedroom and an attic. That's what they had. So they had a 2-bedroom house and had a bathroom. There was 5 of us in that house. We had to use one bathroom, right? And so one thing I remember about my parents, they always was helping somebody else that was coming from the South that wanted to come and get a better life. And I was like, well, do we ever get to have this house to ourselves? And so it was like, they always had, I remember my aunt came and she came up and got her master's and she became a school teacher. And then I remember my cousin came up, him and him and his wife came up and they got better jobs working at International Harvester, right? And then, one of my other cousins came, but it seemed like my parents were always a hub for people making that transition for a better life. And so it didn't really, and so, yeah, I grew up in church and all that stuff, but lately my passion has been helping people who on the outside may look like they got it all together, right? They financially may have it all together. They got the nice house, they got the big job or whatever, but there are people who are struggling emotionally and psychologically. And because they think no one wants to, guess what, hear their story, or guess what, if somebody hears their story, they're like, oh no, I can't follow you anymore on social media because I know your story, or you're not somebody I look up to now because I hear your story. So people are struggling between telling their story and holding that in and releasing that story and being psychologically or spiritually or emotionally whole. So that's where I find myself is now. And I started doing that, I guess, when I started working at the hospital back like in 2009. I was working at one of the largest hospitals in the DC area. And so I was seeing the gunshots, the stab victims, and how families were impacted by what happened to their family members. And you just see how many people, I tell this one story and I'm done. I had a brother who came in, was shot 7 times, right? Yeah. And they was bringing him in, they was doing CPR, trying to revive him, took him down to OR. Young lady came in, said she was the fiance. She was like 6-7 months pregnant. I'm like, hey, we don't question that. You say you're the fiance, right? So we let her stay in the waiting room. About 2 o'clock in the morning, a security call said, hey, Rev, you got to come down to the main lobby. I said, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Lobby's closed. I'm trying to sleep, right? So I get to the lobby. Sisters there was like, yeah, I'm so-and-so's wife. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, all right. And so what's crazy about it, it was 2 o'clock in the morning. Her hair was done. She looked like she just came straight off the Ebony Fashion Fair runway, bro. So she was like, yeah. And so I said, well, can you show proof that, that's your husband? This sister had her birth certificate, her marriage certificate, her passport, and her driver's license. She was like, I come to play no games, right? Anyway, so long story short, she ended up being the legal wife. And I just saw how, this brother's, and I don't even judge him. He just has some things going on. That was on a Saturday. The wife came, the girlfriend got picked out, and then on that Monday, another woman came in and said, hey, I'm the girlfriend too. So I was like, oh my God. Wow. So I just saw how emotionally and psychologically we will do things to cover up what our real issues are. And so I just see this group of us being able to help people be transparent to get to the root cause of some of the things they've done. Because once you get rid of the root cause, then you can grow. You can be a better person. And then you can really help other people because guess what? You're not hiding that root cause anymore. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So
absolutely, and good stuff again.
Yeah, great story, and I think you brought up a lot of things. You all did that we'll certainly touch on.
Yeah,
but this thing about Black men and their lack of want or will to show their vulnerabilities, because of how strong they had to appear to be growing up in the environments we grew up in. Once we start peeling back that onion, I think that will, reveal a lot of what people every day now are struggling with. So I appreciate, all the feedback on that. And, so for me, what motivates me is the fact that any good that I've ever come across in life or anything good that has happened to me has been because someone else took the time to reach out or to give back or provide me an opportunity, and I'm a firm believer and the law of reciprocity and, karma, so giving back is the least that I could do. Plus,
Absolutely.
since you say I'm the elder statesman here, I will tell you that as you live and grow and experience things and, have things, or chase what, some have sold to us as the American dream. With wisdom comes a lot of insight into what that really means. And of course, it's different for each individual now, because I don't think anyone determines that for you. Or like I think Kevin said, the definition of success. Everyone gets to define it for themselves.
Right.
So I think, and that's one of the things, imparting that type of knowledge on, especially young people, to understand that, you get to determine your own destiny in life.
That's right.
And here's some tools to help you along the way. And here's some things that you have to develop within yourself, that ultimately will build things that you absolutely need to have, like confidence, high self-esteem, the belief that you can do anything that you put your mind to, So that's what I really look forward to doing. And that's kind of what motivates me to want to give back. And, and we've all worked together and been through things together,
Yes.
and realize that, some days, you got to talk your brother down,
Many times.
provide them a different perspective, right? And a lot of times it is about that, I can provide you a perspective because maybe I've already been through that. And I'm here to let you know that it's not as bad as it seems on the other side.
Right.
So, and then not letting someone else who might ultimately not be significant in your life determine your future or your destiny, because maybe you made a decision in the heat of passion and emotion that you would have otherwise not made, because you realize that they're not even worth it. Ultimately, I'm just hurting myself. So there's so much going on in this world, especially in this country. And I look forward to doing anything I can to help any young person, older person, African-American men, otherwise, especially African-American men, because I think we have some of the same struggles that are born out of our history and the history
Amen
of
to
our ancestors,
Right.
and the things that they had to go through just to have a piece of relevance in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So I think once we, understand our history better, and kind of try to help others, peel back the onion and understand theirs, they'll see that, you're here now and you have a purpose.
Right.
Right.
And it's that pursuit of finding your purpose, for me, that has always kept me hungry and motivated.
Yep.
So I look forward to it, and I appreciate you brothers bringing me along. I told John earlier, I'm really going to work on this technological thing. But
Candygram for Mongo. Candygram for Mongo.
I really am, man. I am glad to be here, and I will tell you, my heart is overflowing, because this is the type of thing that I know is important, and you can always make time for this. So I still appreciate you, brothers, and I'm truly, humbled and blessed that you would share your story with the rest of the brothers and those that might listen to this podcast. So I appreciate you.
Man, if I could say one thing, I'm sorry, Kevin.
No, you're
just
good.
listening to Rod say all that thing, all the stuff that he just said, man. I talked to a young man yesterday, and told him what we were doing, and he was like, that's what's up. That's what's up. And then I've actually had some folks say, well, why are you looking at doing that? I'm like, you know what? If we can help one person, we can help one Black man, it's a success. And that's what I'm here for. And I appreciate you, brothers. You know, I love you to life, and I'm looking forward to this endeavor with you.
Yeah, for sure. Same here. And man, I think we are off to a great start. I truly do. Man, I don't know that there's anything else that needs to be said. Not to mention, we are just about at our hour. Look at that. Nah, this has been great, fellas, and I am so very much looking forward to doing this thing here a couple of times a month with you all, and being able to not only delve further into our stories, but to be able to talk about some things in general that might be able to help Black men, you know, young Black boys, older Black men, whatever the case is going forward. So I don't know. Does anyone else have anything else before we wrap this up? Or B, John, did y'all have anything else to say? No. You good? All right.
That's a
So
great start, man. Great start.
yeah,
Amazing start. Truly.
no doubt, no doubt. And so with that, we want to thank each of you for taking the time to join us. As we wrap up this week's episode, I want to leave you with a quote from author and motivational speaker Les Brown, who said, "Accept responsibility for your life. Know that it is you who will get you where you want to go, no one else." So until next time, peace.